This webinar is part of a series on teachers in Africa organized jointly by the African Federation of Teaching Regulatory Authorities, or AFTRA, UNESCO's International Institute for Capacity Building in Africa, or IICBA, and the African 19 Hub of the Knowledge and Innovation Exchange Platform, or KIX. You may register to participate in other webinars in the series at the QR code or the link shown in the screen. If you would like to be notified of initiatives for teachers in Africa, including other webinars, interviews, publications, and online trainings, please consider joining our joint AFTRA-IICBA WhatsApp channel. You may also find useful range of resources on the website of UNESCO IICBA at www.iicba.unesco.org, and please do not hesitate to contact us at info.iicba@unesco.org.
Mental health for teachers. So today we are going to commence with this one, which is focused on quality assurance in teacher education. And I will want to hand over to my colleague Hungi Njera, who is going to be giving some kind of introductory remarks to this webinar. I know that many people will be joining us, but in the interest of time, I think it's important that we start. If my colleague Hungi is online, allow me to hand over to you. Over to you, Hungi.
Thank you, Victoria, and my name is Hungi. I have a PowerPoint, a small PowerPoint. I think Marianne is projecting it from her end. Can you hear me, Marianne?
I think it's Henok.
Is it Henok? Oh, okay. Looks like it is not coming up. Or maybe I can do it from my end. Okay. If I can do it from my end also. If it's not possible to do it from that end. Okay, secondly. Can you see my screen?
Not yet, Hungi.
What about now? We are seeing my email.
Yes, we can see it now.
But you're seeing my emails, eh? I don't know why I'm not able to use.
Guy, we could see your screen just 1 minute ago.
Okay, I think I'll just talk over it now that it's Henok there or Marianne. They want to project for
Can
me.
you say it, Hungi?
No, I can't see it. Not yet. I'm only seeing. I'm seeing something, but it's not what. It's not my PowerPoint. This is okay because we are also waiting for people to join us. So there's no problem. Okay, good. Henok, you can start from the first one. Okay, great. So I was asked by the team to share some information on issues that might impact on the quality of the issue that might impact on the quality of teachers in Sub-Saharan Africa. And here are a few examples. I'm just going to go through them very quickly. So the first slide is showing you the summary, the teacher shortages, low levels of trained teachers, inadequate pre-service training, inadequate resources, low levels of CPDs, continuous professional development, high workloads, burnouts, stress, poor living and working conditions, low salaries, low status for the job and job satisfaction, motivation, and so on and so on. There are quite a number. So if you go to the second slide, we can elaborate a little bit on the teacher shortages. The Sub-Saharan Africa, that is the SA region, has the highest proportion of school-age children in the world. As of 2023, UNESCO estimated that 40% of the children in this region, of the people in this region, are under the age of 15, meaning that their school going to age. And UNESCO projects that by 2030, the region needs to employ at least 15 million teachers. And you can see the graph showing you the numbers required for primary and secondary, both for the new position and also replacing those ones who get out of the profession. So the teacher shortages is one factor that could impact on the quality, because as you know, it is associated with other issues like high workloads, large class sizes, and so on. The other factor, low levels of trained teachers. The first graph is showing you an estimate, or rather the levels of teacher people ratios over time. And at around 2016, the primary school, the pupil teacher ratio was about 38:1 for primary, and for secondary 22:1, which doesn't look so bad. But if you now look at the same graph, but now you look at only those teachers who are trained, you see the numbers are no longer impressive. The primary, the ratio is 58:1, while for secondary is 43:1, meaning that we have low levels of trained teachers in our systems, school systems. Next slide, please. So even as we go to the next slide, that one tells you already the quality is compromised, because if we have untrained teachers in our classrooms, the quality is, of course, of teaching and the teacher themselves is compromised. Can you go to the next slide, please, Henok? Henok. Can you hear me, Henok? Victoria, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you very well.
What is happening?
Yeah, my display is closing. I don't know why. Let me try again.
Go to the next slide. The next slide will show we shall be talking about, we will show a graph on inadequate teacher pre-service training, which is another factor that impacts on the quality of teachers. And as you can see, we did a study, IICBA study in Kenya, an online survey, and we asked simple questions on the ICT skills, like word processing, and these are the percentages of teachers saying that they are lacking those skills. And you can see as simple things that we take for granted, word processing, 48.9 were saying they will need training on that, and they are lacking those skills. Going all the way to complicated, of course, issues like conducting online tests and so on. And this was done during COVID time, and it was done online, meaning that if this is what is happening for people who already can go online, what about teachers who are not able to go online? So the levels could be much higher than that. So there is what we're saying, there could be inadequate teacher pre-service training, which could be impacting on the quality. Can you go to the next one, please? Oh, can you hear me, Enoch? Okay, inadequate resources. In another survey, we did a few, 2 or 3 surveys in Kenya around that time, and also other parts of Africa. And we asked the teachers, what kind of resources would help you conduct distance learning? And you can see they were talking about provision of free internet, training of distance learning methods, provision of ICT devices, and all those is related to money or resources. So we can say there is inadequate resources could also be impacting negatively on the quality of teachers or teaching in Africa. Next one, please. Okay, the other factor is the low levels of continuous professional development. And this is an example from European data, which could also be applicable, which of course are applicable to many other African countries or Sub-Saharan African countries. And these are the types of continuous professional development and the percentages of teachers saying they have done this kind of, they have participated, not saying, it's actually from the EMIS data, recorded. So this is not like perception, this is real data saying these are the teachers who have done special needs training, ICT training, and you can see there's very, very small percentages. So there is very low levels of CPD activities in Africa in general, and this could be impacting on the quality of the teacher and teaching in classrooms. Next, please. We carried out a study in 5 African countries on the CPDs, on the continuous professional development in emerging contents, and you can see the needs. The needs for CPDs are there. The teachers need CPDs, but we are not able to provide them as a school system or as a community of education and so on. So next, please. This graph shows you, we asked the teachers in Kenya about what kind of issues they experience a lot. And we went to primary school, secondary school, and also universities. And you can see from this graph, the kind of issues that were reporting to be, they experience a lot. Things like poor or low salaries, which is being reported by both primary and secondary school teachers, as well as universities tutors. And the same slow job progression is another factor, with almost 72% of the secondary school teachers saying that they experience slow job progression. And this has an impact on the quality of their work. Next. So, and we asked another question here in Kenya on job satisfaction and a few other questions on related to motivation. And you can see most teachers were saying that 7.3% of the teachers were agreeing that their salaries are not good. They don't like them. They are not satisfied with their salaries. But as far as the job satisfaction, about half said they were satisfied, but that is not good enough. We could be targeting maybe every teacher being happy with their job. Next. And this, of course, impacts on the quality. I think that is it for this introduction. And I hope you are able to set the stage and also buy some time for the other speakers to have joined us and other participants. Back to you, Victoria. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hongi Njora, for those interesting statistics in terms of the motivation of teachers, in terms of the aspects of CPD. And colleagues, we will be sharing these presentations in case you need them. And so I really want to thank you so much for that. Right now, allow me, colleagues, to move to the Director for UNESCO IICBA to give his welcome remarks for this forum. And if you have the time and are able to type in the chat, let us know where you're connecting from by your name and organization and designation. It would be nice to know who is on the forum, much as we know that you have been able to register for this meeting. Over to you, to Dr. Quinton Worden.
Thank you, Victoria, and welcome everybody. So Victoria asked me to share a few introductory thoughts. This is the second webinar we are having in a new series that is jointly between the KIX Africa 19 Hub, UNESCO IICBA, and AFTRA. And there is one person I want to especially recognize, which is the Professor Ajiboye. I'm very happy that is here. He's the president of AFTRA, and he's also the head of the Teacher Service Commission for Nigeria, TRCN, for those who are familiar. So this webinar series is really important for us for a number of reasons. And I want to mention a few that are actually time sensitive. The first reason is that many of you may know that the African Union has launched the process for the review of the current continental education strategy for Africa and the preparation of the new CESA. There are a number of instruments and a number of initiatives being launched. For this, actually, the launch of the CESA review was done at the AFTRA annual conference a few weeks back in Zambia. There is a survey that is open to all stakeholders, and I'm going to put it in the chat so that if any of you would like to make comments on the current CESA and share ideas for the future CESA, this can be done through that survey, and IICBA is helping the African Union in this work. So that's one time-sensitive thing I wanted to mention to all of you, because we have essentially 3-4 months to complete the CESA review that actually will go faster, and then to help the African Union prepare a new CESA. So it's a unique opportunity once every 10 years. So again, I will put that in the chat. I do want to mention that together with AFTRA, apart from this new webinar series, we are also improving the Journal of Teaching and Learning in Africa. I hope that by the end of the month, before a big conference of the African Union in Addis in early July, we will have the first issue on school leadership ready. And that relates, and perhaps the professor will mention this, that relates to the topic of today, that AFTRA is also launching an initiative to have licensing for school leaders across African countries. And we think this is very promising. The last initiative I want to mention for those of you, and I saw some comments from Education International in the chat, is that we are also thinking with Education International of doing a specific survey for teachers and especially teacher unions on what they have to say in terms of what has been achieved for teachers over the last 10 years and what needs to be done over the next 10 years. Now, I wanted to mention those because you can contribute to these initiatives. And again, I'll mention some links in the chat, and you can also send us an email. Now, the fact that quality assurance is important in teacher education, I think that's a no-brainer. I mean, we all agree on that, right? But then the question is, how do we get it done? How do we provide advice to countries, to ministries of education, teacher service commissions, and others about how to improve quality assurance for teacher education programs? So I won't say too much. This is the core topic today, with, of course, the keynote from Professor Ajiboye, but then we have great presenters from several countries that follow afterwards. The last thing I want to mention, which is a little bit self-interested, but this is important, is that IICBA has launched this year a new series of publications, which are called the Africa Teachers Report. The first Africa Teacher Report, I mentioned that at the first seminar, was shared as a conference edition at 2 events at the European Union in January and February, and we are finalizing it for the first Pan-African Conference on Girls' Education that is in the first week of July. And that report was about the role of teachers and school leaders in improving girls' education and ending child marriage. What may matter more for you is that the second report is on teacher shortages. And Hungi, I wouldn't say that I disagree with the numbers of UNESCO on the 15 million. I cannot disagree with UNESCO, right? I'm at UNESCO. But I think what we need to do is unpack those numbers and understand what different countries may be able to achieve in an ambitious way, but still in a realistic way between now and 2030. And then what are some of the trade-offs between the hiring and training of new teachers versus upgrading the skills of the teachers we have right now, right? Which is a very large amount of teachers. Just in Ethiopia, I think it's 800,000 teachers, right here, where we are based at IICBA. So what I want to tell you, and I'll put again a note in the chat, is that if you want to work with us on that second Africa Teachers Report on teacher shortages that we are targeting for release for World Teachers Day in October, please do not hesitate to contact us, and we will also contact some of you directly. I hope I was not too long, Victoria. I wanted to make those brief introductory remarks, thanking you for participating. The first webinar is actually online, and maybe we can even share that information for people who may be here today but didn't see the first one. This webinar, together with the materials, will also be made available online next week. And so you will get all the PowerPoints that different presenters are using. So let me stop here, Victoria, and give the floor back to you to introduce Professor Ajiboye.
Thank you very much, Finton, for those wonderful opening remarks. Of course, you've given me the biggest task of introducing Professor Josiah Ajiboye. Yes, let me take the honor that you've given me. He's our keynote speaker for today, and he's going to be speaking about enhancing the capacity of teacher training programs for a competent teaching workforce in Africa. Professor Josiah Ajiboye is the president for AFTRA and the registrar and chief executive for the Teachers Registration Council of Nigeria. So it's an honor for us to have you today, and thank you for creating the time. Over to you, Prof.
Thank you very much, Victoria. Let me start by appreciating Dr. Quintin for his marvelous effort in getting everybody together in the continent. When this idea was mooted at the last conference of the Africa Federation of Teaching Regulatory Authorities in Zambia, just last month, you know, it sounds, well, yeah, let us give it a try and let us see how it goes. And I want to say the first webinar, yes, though I missed it, but the report I got from the Secretary General of AFTRA was that, look, it was really, really a good opportunity for us in Africa. Because, look, we are thinking between the conferences of AFTRA, you know, which holds once in a year, how can we engage African teachers? Okay, the idea is how can we engage African teachers
someone should let a professor know that we can't hear him. I think he has got an internet hunch somewhere there, or hitch. Let colleagues from AFTRA please help. Please help so that we can have Professor Ajiboye back online. Thank you so much. In the meantime, as we're waiting for him to reconnect, please paste your name or type your name in the chat room. Welcome back, Professor. We missed you right at the introduction, so you can kindly unmute and restart. Thank you very much.
Well, just at the point of introduction, okay, let me start all over. Let me start by saying that, well, I start by appreciating Dr. Quintin for the excellent job that he's doing, especially for rallying together everybody in Africa, in the continent, to make sure that we discuss the issue of teachers and teaching. This idea came from him at the last conference of the Africa Federation of Teaching Regulatory Authorities, which was held in Lusaka, Zambia, just last month. And we thought the idea is a beautiful one because it will bring everybody together so that between the two conferences of AFTRA, you know, we continue to engage ourselves and we continue to look at issues that affect the issue of teachers and teaching in the continent. I'm glad that this is a reality today. So it's my pleasure to be with you. And I also appreciate Victoria coordinating here. I also started by saying that Dr. Ungi has set the stage for the discussion today by giving us the idea, the background information on the issue of teacher shortage in the continent, which according to UNESCO is put about 15 million. And if you have teacher shortage, definitely there's going to be the issue of high teacher pupil ratio. There's no doubt about that. Okay. Yes. But apart from the issue of teacher shortage in the continent, one major issue that also concerns teacher that is so scary to everybody is about the quality of the teachers, which I think this seminar, this webinar today is addressing, is about the issue of teacher quality in the continent. Apart from the fact that we have the issue of teacher shortage, the quality of our teachers has also been called to question over the years. And I think this is the right time for us to be able to do something about it. Yes, my presentation is looking at enhancing the capacity of teacher training programs for a competent teaching workforce in Africa. And like you have seen in the outline, I'll be dealing with some of those items that have been put there. So we can go to the next slide. And I said, as we move further into the fourth industrial revolution, or what you call Industry 4.0, it is, becoming increasingly important for teachers to be prepared to educate and train students for the, rapidly changing workforce. There's no debate about it, that we have to begin to interrogate the quality of our teachers in the continent. Yesterday, when I participated at the TTF meeting, it was an online meeting as well, Teacher Task Force, UNESCO Teacher Task Force meeting. I raised the issue of teacher quality in the continent, because apart when you talk, yes, teacher shortage, there are challenges here and there. We can even talk of teacher allocation and disproportionate allocation. That is what will lead to shortages and things like that. But the question that one needs to address squarely is about the quality of even those teachers that we have. So there is a need for us to challenge and to interrogate the quality of the teacher education programs that we have in the continent. It is essential that the education sector keeps pace with these changes and prepare students with the skills and competencies they will need to succeed in the jobs of the future. I'm not sure by today if our teachers are actually prepared to be able to lead our young ones, to what we call the job of the futures. And that's why all of us should be concerned about the kind of quality of the teachers that we have. And to achieve this, we say teacher education. Go to the next slide. Teacher education must be re-engineered. We said teacher education must be re-engineered to align with the needs of Industry 4.0, and teachers themselves must be equipped with the necessary skills and training to effectively teach subjects in the schools. Okay? Let us look at the challenges that are faced in preparing teachers for development. Let's look at challenges. I was able to isolate about 3 of them here. I said outdated curricula, and this is pervasive in the continent. When we look at the teacher education programs that we run, you will discover that the question that will come to your mind is whether this kind of curricula can meet the 21st century demands, or what you call Industry 4.0. Can this curricula that we use in preparing the teachers, the kind of the teachers that we come from these places, can they meet the kind of a teacher you need to prepare the learners for the 21st century age? Then you talk of lack of digital literacy. I'm glad Dr. Ungi has also raised that issue. Yes, when, from the study that was carried out in Kenya, it's obvious. It's obvious. Most of the things that teachers could do maybe is even limited to word processing. In Nigeria, let me give you this anecdote. In Nigeria, in 2017, when we started the professional qualifying exam for teachers, the first exam, it's not that the teachers in the knowledge of the content was there, but the major challenge that those teachers actually faced was the use of the computer. Some of them were meeting the computer for the first time. And when we asked them to click start, a large percentage of those teachers actually click submit. Whereas even some of them, a large number of them, when we said start, they picked the mouse, they were waiting at the monitor. It will surprise you. That was the reality that we battled with until they realized that they need to go for computer appreciation training programs to be able to cope with the examination. So digital literacy is very, very critical. And I said inadequate training programs for the teachers. a large number of these teachers, when they have been employed, you know, you will discover that between the time they are employed and the present situation, they have not gone for any, you know, continuing professional development program. You know, it's so sad. Some of them have been on the job for 10 years and they have not gone for any further training to be able to, you know, retool themselves. Let's look at the competencies that we need for 21st century. You know, if we are talking of analytical skills, we are talking of critical thinking, problem solving, decision making, research and development. These are some of the things that our learners need. But to what extent are our teachers prepared to be able to deliver on this? And I put all the skills that will be sub-skills that will be required in each of these ones. And what you know, agitate our minds actually is to what extent our teachers actually prepared to be able to deliver on these things. Our teacher prepared to be able to deliver on analytical skills when they are not even, they do not even possess the skills in the first instance. Can you give what you do not have? It's not possible. Okay, when you are talking of critical thinking, problem solving, you know, these days this thing is not about regurgitation of facts, which characterized the former education system, you know. And the next slide, I said, let's look at, you know, when you look at what I call the problem solving loop, what are those things that the teachers will require? Knowledge of the discipline, practical and, you know, and psychomotor skills. Most of our teachings are still theoretical in the continent. They are still theoretical. Okay, interpersonal skills and social responsibility, ethics and professionalism, communication and leadership skills. And this is very, very important. The communication of our teachers, I think at a stage, maybe with UNESCO IICBA, we may begin to do something about communication skills of our teachers. You know, the number one skill that you require as a teacher to be able to deliver efficiently and effectively is communication. But a large number of our teachers, you know, I'm sure Dr. Quintin will be familiar with some teachers in Nigeria. You know, you have visited this place, you have been here before, especially, you know, when you go to some parts of the country. We have some teachers that do not even operate based on English. They will tell you Arabic medium only. Okay? So, you know, it is still a big challenge. It's still a big challenge. When you talk of analytical and critical thinking, you talk of management skills and entrepreneur, you know, characteristics. These are things that are missing. Okay? And so what kind of education that we need to offer? You know, in next slide, I look at the various categories and what we have done in the various categories. Centuries of experience in those days, experience and memorization. We talk of internet, you know, enabled learning, consuming and producing knowledge. That's education 3.0. Now, education 4.0 is empowering educators and education themselves to produce innovation. It's just about innovation now. And this is what we talk about now. What is taught and what is learned. There is a gap between what is taught and what is learned. And so we have to focus on these two aspects. What is taught and what is learned. And do we actually those teachers that can deliver what our actually require? That will lead me to the next slide, when we are talking of the paradigm shift that we need, you know, in terms of the requirement for basic knowledge among the teachers, the empty, you know, container paradigm, which was the old idea. And then we talk of the learning, which occurs individually these days, and then the computers interface with thinking. Now we just have to, as teachers, we just have to embrace the use of the computers and technology. I was looking at the role of what we need to do to our education, teacher education program. If you go to the next slide, you will see what I've put there. One, I talk of updating the curricula. It is very, very important. In fact, if CESA, if AU, and UNESCO IICBA could be thinking of reviewing the CESA, the curriculum itself, for the continental education strategy itself, you know. So if they are thinking of reviewing that, I think, you know, it is now imperative that we have to update our curricula across board in the continent. Okay, and in this, I said we design the curriculum with strong linkages and exposure to real-world learning methods as delivered to students. We develop flexible learning programs, okay, to develop flexible learning programs and multiple entry and exit points. These are some of the things that we need to do. Integrate the skills into the curriculum, okay, through integration with real world, situation and stakeholders such as industry, society, and entrepreneurial networks. We need to do this. We also need to offer digital media-based collaboration as teacher education programs. These are some of the things that apart from updating the curriculum, I also say that we need to incorporate digital literacy. And I want to say this clearly, that there is no way, teachers, we can be 21st century teachers without digital literacy. That is the reality. That is the reality that we are battling with. And so teacher education programs have to have a lot of digital components, because the teachers that we are producing, our children of today, they are digital natives. And as teachers, we cannot continue to remain digital immigrants. We just have to catch up with these children. Technology will not replace teachers, but teachers who know how to use technology will replace those who don't know how to use it. That's the reality. Technology won't replace teachers, but teachers who know how to use technology will replace those who do not know how to use it. In fact, the lessons we have learned from COVID-19 has made it very glaring that digital literacy is the way to go. Digital literacy and online learning is the way to go. I also look at offering training programs to the teachers. Like I said earlier on, it's not just a matter of graduating from their teacher education institutions. We also have to offer them developmental training programs, what we call the continuing mandatory professional development programs for our teachers. Even the era of using this going out of school to go for one training or the other, may not be so sufficient like what we have presently. I'm very sure so many teachers who will be hooked up to this webinar will be able to, gain so many things from the webinar. And that is the way to go in using technology. We need to foster collaboration. In Nigeria, last year, we organized in conjunction with UNESCO too. We were supported by UNESCO. We were able to organize since 2021, we started organizing what we call online conference of registered teachers with the support from UNESCO. And last year, we looked at community of practice. What we looked at last year was about community of practice. This is speaking about collaboration. It's speaking about working together in teams and in groups. And this is very essential because we have to foster collaboration. If all the physics teachers in the continent are working together, if all the chemistry teachers, all the mathematics teachers in the continent are working together, or if even in a country, if they are working even in groups, it will help them. In some religion, they will say iron sharpened iron. In some religion, when you collaborate, you gain more. Okay, you sharpen the other person, and you'll be able to gain more. So we have to foster collaboration among the teachers. If you go to the next slide, I was talking of the teacher 0.40 as a leader. And what do they require? Okay, they serve as a guide. And they serve as mentors to their learners. And some of the things that I put here, I said they try to motivate the learners. They promote collaboration and learning, communication, and then democratic. The teachers are more democratic in the way they handle things. These are the things that we want to see in a teacher 4.0. Okay, and if you go to the next slide, I was looking at the teachers we need. The teacher 4.0 that we need. 4.0 is a name or concept to be adapted for teachers who are able to handle new technology and who implement it effectively in their classes. It is a response to the need for the Industrial Revolution 4.0, where humans and technology are converging to create new opportunities creatively and innovatively. This is the kind of teachers that we need in the continent, teacher 4.0. And I went further in the next slide to say that the teachers we need must be that one that can develop critical thinking in the learners, creativity, can promote creativity, cognitive flexibility, technology literacy, coordinating with others, open learning platform, okay? And then curriculum reorientation. I said this is what the kind of teachers that we require. And in conclusion, I say what worked before doesn't work today. And that is the reality. What worked before doesn't work today. To make effective sense of unfamiliar situations and complex challenges, we must have a grasp of the whole situation, its variables, unknown and mysterious forces. This requires skills beyond everyday analysis. It requires innovation in education. It requires innovation in education. And I think the next slide, I said the thing is education will never disappear. It will just take up different forms. Here are the 9 things that will shape the future of education during the next 20 years. Diverse time and place. The context will change completely. Diverse time and place. Personalized learning, free choice, project-based, field experience, data interpretation. Exam will change completely. The way we examine our learners will also change completely. Student ownership of learning is going to be highly promoted. And then mentoring will become more important. Mentoring and coaching will become more important. And it's on this note, I want us today to examine what we do at this webinar so that we'll be able to interrogate everything as regards the quality of teachers in the continent. Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Wow, what an inspiring keynote address. Thank you so much, Professor. We really, really appreciate. That is Professor Josiah Ajiboye from AFTRA, the president of AFTRA and the registrar as chief executive for the Teachers Registration Council in Nigeria. Yes, I can see applause is coming up for you. Thank you so much. You've made the chat room very, very busy. People commenting, yes, that is true. Yes, it's well said. And really, thank you so much for those insightful words. And I want to pick a few. You mentioned that we are in Industrial 4.0, and we need teachers to be well prepared for this industrial revolution. It's the 4th one. And you also mentioned that teacher education must be re-engineered, looking at the needs of the society. In other words, teachers need to produce learners that are relevant to the needs of the society. We need to update our curriculum. We need to update the training programs, teacher education training programs, offer training programs that are relevant, collaboration, and so on and so forth. And you say that what worked before does not work today. It is irrelevant. So we need innovation. And we must use ICTs for teaching and learning. Teachers cannot be left behind. So thank you so much for those wonderful remarks. And we want to thank you so much. There are so many comments in the chat room, but we shall come to them. And another round of applause for Professor. Yes, so we need to be moving to the next presentations. I know that the comments on Professor's presentation allow me to pack them a little bit. The hand claps are going on more and more. Yes, so we need to listen to these presentations. We have presentations from Uganda. They're sharing the quality assurance self-diagnostic tools and the standards plus indicators that they're using in teacher education programs. And this is going to be none other than Dr. Josephine Esaete. She's a lecturer from Makerere University College of Education and External Studies. Let me just be sure that Dr. Josephine is present online. I just be sure that she's there because she was struggling to connect. Prof, are you present online? Just let me know.
Please. Can you hear me?
Wonderful. Yes, beautiful. She's present online. Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Can someone share my slides?
Yes, Henok is going to be sharing your slides. Henok, over to you.
Thank you very much, colleagues. It is afternoon in Uganda. I can say good afternoon and welcome, everyone. I'm glad to be here. I'm going to share with you a few insights on quality assurance, self-diagnostic tools, and quality assurance standards and indicators. I'm from School of Education, Makerere University. My department is Science and Technical Education. Next slide. So I have a brief, just to tell you a brief introduction, then I dive into the diagnostic tools, and then I look at quality assurance standards and indicators. Yes, Enoch? Yes. Now, colleagues, there is this saying, quality teacher, you can fill in the dots. And you could say is actually directly linked to quality education, meaning that the quality of the teachers determines the kind of education that is in a given nation. So for quality assurance purposes, no, still stick to my slide. For quality assurance purposes, if we define quality assurance as a process of detecting and correcting our mistakes so that we don't keep on making the same mistakes, then it is important that we are able to self-assess what we do. And also, if we look at quality assurance in that context, it means that it has to be an inbuilt into the process. You cannot check at the end. So it has to be part and parcel of teacher education. Therefore, the point that I would like to make here is that the culture of internal quality assurance becomes very important. And for internal quality assurance to happen, then the actors within the institution need to have a way of checking what they do, how they do it, and what that means for them in terms of their roles as teacher educators. That's why self-diagnostic tools become very vital. Next slide. So we have a few diagnostic tools that I can share with you. One of the tools that we actually use is the individual teacher trainer diagnostic tool, which is a tool meant for the teacher educator to self-assess. And in this tool, we are focusing on the critical areas where the teacher educator operates, what the teacher educator does. And this self-assessment is done at 4 different levels. We have level 4, which is actually good for the ideal, and then acceptable and can be improved, and then the unacceptable. So here we are looking at teacher educators, teaching and learning. What are those processes involved in teaching and learning that the teacher educator needs to be self-assessing? One of them is planning and preparation. You need to ask yourself, do you have the ability to plan and prepare effectively? And what do we look for to show that at least you can prepare and plan and prepare effectively? We would check for your session plans, your teaching plans. And then the other aspect is pedagogy and subject content. The teacher educator needs to self-assess. Do I have a good understanding of the subject matter that I teach, in addition to how I teach it? So we would be interested in qualifications that match the level at which the teacher educator teaches, because at that point we would expect the teacher educator to have a mastery of the subject. What kinds of pedagogies? We are in 21st century, learner-centeredness, driven, and use of ICT. Those are things that count. Then practical teaching, the practical teaching aspect of his or her subject becomes very important. Is the practical bit engaging for the trainees? And does it reflect the learning outcomes? And how does the teacher educator ensure that the trainees are actually doing it, not just watching? And then assessment, we look at what kinds of assessments, using of multiple methods. We want to see the formative assessments. What are they like? Is there a conversation? Is there observation? Is the product also included? And then aligning these assessments to the learning outcomes so that you actually assess what you intend the learner to be able to do. And then the school or the college practice, understanding the purpose, the overall purpose of teacher development. And it means having an institution, am I abreast with what actually constitutes a good practice in terms of teaching profession. Then the other aspect that we look at is research and outreach. For us, we're interested in reflective teaching and learning. You do some research so that you're able to catch up with the trends. You are not teaching the 19th century information to the 21st century learners. So the only way to do that is for you to do research. Believe me, there are so many changes that have taken place, even in the kind of knowledge that we teach. So the only way to keep abreast is having research and then outreach activities. So we check by looking at the kind of publication reports and the reflective journals where somebody is reflecting on their everyday practice and what that means for them as teacher educators. Eno, can you scroll it down a bit? Okay, the bit of professional and ethical conduct, teachers conducting themselves within the confines of what the profession calls of them. Because remember, the role models bit of it, the teacher trainees get to see what the teacher educators do. So they have to understand the professional knowledge in terms of the foundation knowledge, the subject, and how to deliver it. And the indicators for self-assessment is interrogating yourself in terms of what is the knowledge in terms of the subject you're teaching. How are the students learning? How are you delivering? What are your pedagogies like? Because the pedagogy also needs to speak to the kind of knowledge. And ethical based models that can be emulated, which actually portray that you are a teacher within the confines of the professional teacher conduct. And then trying to engage to understand whether you are involved in the activities, the kind of activities. And we would be interested in understanding your professional activities that you participate in. Do you go for any training? If yes, which one and when was the last time? And you are involved in your leadership, academic leadership and development in the community. And what is your role, for example, in the community as that relates to the career as a teacher. That would be something very critical. Yes, Enoch? Yeah. Now, once the individual teacher has self-assessed their capacities in the respective areas, we would want evidence for that. So we expect the individual teacher to show evidence in the form of a report of their self-assessment in the various components, which actually include the learning, teaching and learning, research and outreach, professionalism, and ethics. So what observations can be availed and then produce a summary of evidence that can guide and say, okay, this teacher is at ideal, is at acceptable level, or this teacher is at an acceptable level. Enoch, next slide. Okay, the other important aspect that is almost like what I have just talked about is leaders of teacher training institutions, the leadership. We feel this is something very, very important. And we are looking at it in the context of, okay, how is the teacher education and training leadership in the different teacher training institutions? How is it like? The mission and the vision of professional teacher development, ethical conduct, and integrity. For us, we are interested in understanding the mission, vision statements, and core values, because, colleagues, the aspirations of a given country are reflected or are operationalized in education systems. So the mission and the vision and the core values have to reflect the wishes of that nation. And hence, institutions, vision, mission statements, and core values guide the actions of the different stakeholders in a given institution, which is actually anchored on what the country dreams about and where it wants to go in terms of development. So the governance practices also need to be aligned to the institution and the national legal frameworks. And here we would be interested in looking at the policies and the governing that the governing councils are implementing. Do they meet? Are they aligned to the national frameworks? Then the professional, competent, and well-qualified teachers need to have high expectations of what the stakeholders wish to achieve as far as learning outcomes is concerned. And hence, the indicators that we look for is the staff qualifications, kinds of experiences that they have, and their overall commitment to work in a higher teacher education institution, and their commitment linking to the kind of standards that are expected of them in terms of being teacher educators and delivering the teachers that the nation dreams to have. Enoch, can you take me to the next slide? Yes, and it is still like the previous slide. We would expect the leaders, the individual leader, to show evidence to justify why they have self-assessed or the choices that they have reported about themselves and in the different sub-components. What is the reason for that? And then we also would be are interested in what are the strengths from that self-assessment, where is improvement required, and then what is the plan for that? So we have quite a number of tools that are used for self-assessment: the teacher educator, personal self-assessment, the teacher educator leader, the leader in the teacher educator training institution can also do self-assessment with a view to try to improve and have the kind of quality of work that is expected of them that matches the level of their teacher training, and then giving out or channeling products that can address the needs of Uganda as a nation. The next tool that we have is actually a tool that addresses the institutional tool, the whole institution. What takes place in that institution? It cuts across the governance, it takes the program, it takes the enabling environment, it takes the teaching and learning. This is a holistic approach of self-assessment. The institution is expected to sit down and self-assess itself with a view to understand their weaknesses, where they can improve, and sometimes also having benchmarks relating with another institution so that they can peer assess one another and then be able to improve as a team. So there are different aspects that we look at when it comes to programs. We look at the curriculum, look at the learning facilities, we look at the kind of adequacy in terms of learner-centeredness and the teaching and learning facilities, if they are all inclusive. And enabling environment, both academic and physical, what is existing in the institution. And then the teaching and learning, planning and preparation, just like the teacher, the teacher educator had self-assessed. Now we can look at the teacher in the training institution as an institution, and we have that assessment tool. This is used together with a rubric for institutional assessment. We also have rubrics for the teacher educator assessment and the the leadership or the leaders in teacher training institutions assessments. These rubrics help to score. They use it to score themselves. And hence the rubrics also have levels: the level at the policies, the institutional leaders, the communication, the culture of change and innovation. And the standards range from 4, which is the highest or the best, up to level 1. When it is at 4, it means that the major things that happen in the institution are moving in a positive trend. But of course, such institution also will aspire to even do much better. So we expect the institutions to be able to self-assess and strive to improve. If you are at the highest level, then your aspiration is to become even much better, while at the lowest level should look toward to attaining the best level. So we have tools for the different kinds of self-assessment. Okay. Can you, Eric, move to the quality assurance standards and indicators?
And Doctor, I request that you fast track in the interest of time.
Oh.
Thank you.
Yes. Now, for quality assurance and standards, this almost is similar to what I have just been talking about. we have different domains. The domains that we have selected are based on the premise that those aspects are very important, or they contribute to quality teacher education. And these domains are quite a number of them. There are 5 or 6, and governance is one of them. But we have a domain which we call minimum standards, and these are the minimum standards as regards the National Council for Higher Education. That is the minimum that each and every teacher training institution needs to meet. And the standards that we picked again are still resonating around, for example, the mission, vision, and the core values, code of conduct, because we believe this is where the country's aspirations get reflected. What is the mission of your teacher training institution in relation to what's the dream of Uganda? So we expect every teacher training institution to do that. For governance and administrative practices, I can just take you through this one, and because the rest will almost be replicating the same thing. The standard is what we are looking at as the level of quality expected. And we expect the teacher training institution in terms of governance and administration to have practices that are aligned to their national and institutional legal frameworks. And then the performance indicators will be the kind of policies that exist in that training institution. Yes, Eric? Can you scroll down? Eric?
Enoch, please scroll down.
Yes, yes. Now, we have the domains as program, which is curriculum, facilities and institutional resources, enabling environment, teaching and learning, research and outreach activities, professional and ethical conduct, student support and welfare, and e-learning. All of these domains, we have the standards, we have performance indicators, and also the guidelines. Thank you, Eric.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Josephine, for taking us through the tools comprehensively. She was giving examples of the self-diagnostic tools that are being used in the country of Uganda for the assessment of quality assurance at the teacher education level. You know, most of the countries tend to have the QA guidelines for higher education, yet there are no specific tools that can be customized for teacher education and training programs. So it's very important that we get to know what is happening in those tools, the kind of standards embedded in those tools, as well as the indicators that are used to evaluate the quality of teaching and learning at the institutions. So we want to thank you so much for sharing that experience. And before we go into the next presentation, I just want to pause a little bit here so that we can have some comments that we have seen and questions addressed to Professor Josiah Ajiboye. I hope you're still online, because there's quite a lot that was ignited by your presentation. And then
well,
also,
I think I'm still around.
It's great to
I'll
see
be here
you.
for a few minutes. Yes.
Very, very well. Very well. And then we also have some comments to Yvonne to go in the chat room quickly. There's quite a number of questions I saw. And yeah, I think let me hand over to Yvonne. Yvonne, over to you.
Thank you so much, Victoria. And indeed, we have so many questions, and also a lot of observations. So I'll just read a few comments and then I'll go into the questions. So for the comments, let me start with Mabor. I think this just reflecting on what Professor said, and he says that in South Sudan, the government at one point delayed teachers' salaries for almost 9 months, and they couldn't imagine how much damage that caused. We also have Emmanuel who says, thank you, Prof, for the insightful ideas. He also believes that the change should start with us as teacher educators so that we mirror to the teacher trainees, and then we mirror to the teacher trainees the desirable skills so that our universities or colleges curricula equally needs to be revamped. And then we also have Vishal. If I pronounce your name wrongly and mispronounced, please apologies in advance. So Vishal says, as responsible teachers, we should be well versed with the teaching learning syllabus, which is in line with the curriculum. Besides, we should also be able to adopt and adapt to use technology, to use technological means in our profession. That was again a reflection, just reacting to Professor Ajiboye's presentation. Lawal says, thank you, Professor. Teachers' education programs and curricula needs revitalization at the College of Education and university level. We also have another one. This is from Betty. Thank you for the presentation. We also need to begin interrogating the teacher educator. What is the pedagogical practices? What is the predominant teacher education model in the content? I think in the continent, sorry. So these are some of the remarks that are coming from those who are participating, and we really, really appreciate. So now I'll go to the questions briefly. So the first question is, and this I think has been responded to, but maybe we can give this person an opportunity to ask the question or to clarify the question. It is not very clear. This is from Mark, who says, do you have like a recruitment in the Philippines? So we do not understand that question clearly. Maybe at some point, Mark will clarify that. From Keba Omar, how does deployment or posting of teachers affect the quality of teaching and learning? And this is directed to Dr. Hungi. How does the deployment or posting of teachers affect the quality of learning? Another one that is directed to Dr. Hungi, what teacher or school or classroom and communities factors affect teacher motivation? And two, what of these factors also affect CPD uptake or CPD progress? So that is also for Dr. Hungi. And then another one for Dr. Hungi. I think I'll just ask for Dr. Hungi, and then we'll ask the next questions for Professor Josiah. So you indicate that by 2023, the Sub-Saharan Africa will have a shortage of 15 million teachers. Please indicate what is the formula that leads to 15 million in particular. What was your pupil-teacher ratio, and especially your class size ratio in your calculations? So I think we'll take those three for Dr. Hungi, and then we'll take another three for Professor Ajiboye. Dr. Hungi, over to you.
Thank you, Victoria. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, the question on deployment of teacher and quality, I must admit, I don't know how that would affect quality, unless, of course, it is linked to the motivation of the teachers if they are deployed in areas that they are not happy. So that might impact to them negatively. Otherwise, if they are happy and there is fair distribution of teachers across the regions, maybe that wouldn't be a factor. And also the community factor that might affect the quality of teaching of the teachers, of course, is linked to the deployment one, in that, again, it also depends on how supportive is a community and the parents in particular. We know that parents, if they collaborate well with the teachers, most of the time we have better learning outcomes. So it could also motivate or demotivate teachers in that way. I did not understand the question on the CPD uptakes on the community. So I think maybe I need clarification on that moving forward. As far as the formula for calculating how many teachers, the shortage of teachers, the assumption, I don't have the formula with me, but there's a report which we shall share with this webinar link later on in the report. We shall share the link to the report, the NESCO report, where you can get the information there firsthand. I don't have the formula. I did not do that calculation. It's just that information that is available to us from other experts. But in that report, there also details about the different pupil-teacher ratios across time and the class sizes and so on. And maybe my director, Quentin, might want to add something on that, because that is his area of, he's an expert in this kind of work. Over to you.
Thank you, Hungi.
Ivan, sorry.
Thank you so much, Hungi. Quentin, do you want to come in now?
Sure. But I'm not going to explain the formula, but essentially the idea is that you have a certain pupil-teacher ratio, and you compute the number of teachers that are needed by 2030 to achieve 100% enrollment in primary and secondary. And you take into account both the expansion of the system to achieve that enrollment and the attrition, the replacement that you have to do for teachers. Anybody interested in this, you can contact us. We are going to do a lot of additional work between now and October on estimating teacher shortages. The 50 million is what we need for achieving the SDGs, but we also need to provide practical guidance to countries in terms of what they may realistically but ambitiously achieve in the next 6 years. So again, if you want to know the more detailed formula, or if you want to consult with us, either to understand how you can complete it yourself, or how we can help you at the country level, we are happy at IICBA to help you, and then we will release a lot of new analysis by October 5th. Back to you, Ivan.
Thank you so much, Quentin. So, Hungi, I'm not sure whether this was answered, but the person was interested in knowing school factors, teacher factors, classroom factors, or community factors that affect teacher motivation. I don't know if you can just rush over that, some of the factors.
Yeah, okay. So from the top of my head, I would think of, again, how well is the community collaborating with the teachers and the schools in general, and how well is the community supportive to the teachers in the bigger picture of student learning. So if you look at that, then you can now try to map what factors that are associated with the community that will impact negatively or positively to teacher performance. So I think that is a very general way of putting it. There might be more out there. And of course, the question is also open to participants who might have information that they could add. They can always add. This is, I think, one of the objectives of this particular webinar is to share information.
Thank you so much, Hungi. I'll be opening up to participants in a while. So let's go to the other questions, and this is to Professor Ajiboye. So the first question is, what are some of the barriers to collaborations currently? I think when it comes to teacher employment, teacher deployment, and all that. And then the second question, what is Teacher 4.0, and is it something known to professionals in the field? And then another one, considering evidence-based decision-making, how can we strengthen education systems to know what works currently? Are there any examples? So over to you, Professor.
Well, sorry. Yes, thank you very much.
Repeat.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think the first question is talking about the issue of collaboration. And I think one of the things that we emphasize in this paper was that actually one of the ways to go, one of the best ways to go in the in teacher development and teacher education program is fostering collaboration among the teachers. You know, I think from the teacher preparation programs, we need to emphasize the importance of collaboration. You see, over the years, teachers have always been working in silos, and we've discovered that, look, when you collaborate, you get better with it. We have been promoting the idea of what you call community of practice, okay? Community of practice. And this is very critical for teachers who are in the same subject areas, okay? They need to come together. They need to work together and be able to, you know, like I said, iron sharpeneth iron. When you collaborate, when you work together, in what we call community of practice, but there should always also be guide, you know, because look, you know, in community of practice, there could be issues as well. You know, you have to watch two major problems you have to watch in community of practice. One is what we call the hijacker effect. The hijacker effect, when somebody can hijack the whole activities of the group. And then also we have what we call the free rider effect. In a community participation, you have some free riders. People will come, they won't contribute anything. Okay? So, you know, the hijacker effect is what we call that. So a few people will just hijack, one individual or a few, we hijack the whole program. Okay? They will dominate the discussion and everything. But the second one, which is free rider, is also very dangerous, where you just go to the community of practice and you don't make contributions. Okay? These are the things to watch out for when you are forming your community of practice. Is very, very important. You don't want somebody to take over the whole program, and you don't also want people to be free riders in the community. Okay, so those are the two major challenges that I think you should look out for in forming your community of practice. The other issue is about the second one is about Teacher 4.0. Yes, we are talking of Industry 4.0, the fourth industrial revolution, the fourth industrial age. And that's why we are talking of the teacher that is required for that industrial age is also Teacher 4.0. Okay? You need a Teacher 4.0 that is digitally compliant, that will be able to handle most of the things that we have discussed. And that is the industrial age that we are in presently. Demands that kind of teachers. Okay? And that's why we refer to them as Teacher 4.0. Those are the teachers that will be able to deliver the fourth industrial age where we are in presently. In fact, we are inching closer to the fifth industrial age. People are now talking about artificial intelligence. They are talking about so many, you know, we are talking of 5G now. Instead of 4G, 3G, 4G, we are talking of 5G in terms of telecommunication network. And so, you know, we are closer to the end of the fourth industrial age. And so our teachers have to keep abreast of some of these. And that is why it's very, very important. That's what we're talking about Teacher 4 is a coinage to reflect the Industry 4.0. And the last question is asking what? Victoria?
Yvonne, just repeat the last question kindly for Prof.
Okay.
Yes.
Actually, one more has come in, so I'll ask the two. Okay. So the last question is considering evidence-based decision-making, how can we strengthen education systems to know what works at them currently? And then do you have any examples? And there's one question that has come in. The world is moving towards technology. Sadly, much of Africa is still struggling to embrace 4G technology. What can Africa do to keep track with the rest of the world?
Well, let me start from the last one. And to say that is still a big challenge to us, technology. And even if you look at the continent, only about 62% of the continent, is connected to the internet. Only about 62%. And that's a huge challenge, okay, to our continent. It's a big challenge to our continent. Only about 62%. And when you do country by country analysis, you will discover that some countries are really, really lagging behind in this. And if we are going to catch up, definitely we have to do something different. Okay? That's why we are calling on our various governments in the continent. A lot of investment is required in the education in the continent. The funding level for education is still very, very low. The funding level for education is still very, very poor. And that is why we are challenging the various governments in the continent to make sure that they focus more on funding of education. Well, when you are talking about what works, I think we have gone beyond the level of experimentation. I think as a continent, we have to look at, what is being done in other, what is being done in other climes and what is working. Look, there are best practices everywhere. There are best practices everywhere that we can learn from. And I believe very strongly that as a continent, we should not be, UNESCO is providing so many opportunities for the various countries in the continent. And so there are plethora of best practices that we can learn from. We don't need to begin to continue with trial and error within the continent. Let's see what works in Finland. What makes teacher education program in Finland one of the best, for example? What makes it one of the best? Okay, let's see what we are doing and that we are not doing. And then how can we incorporate that in our own education, teacher education programs, so that we'll be able to produce the kind of quality of teachers that we require. It's a pity I have to go and join my minister, but I really want to thank everybody once again for this privilege. He gave me an appointment. He called me for 3 p.m. and I have to, Nigerian time. So I have to be on my way. I'm sorry, but I believe the participants can discuss other issues as we move along. Once again, thank you very much and God bless you.
Thank you so much.
Sorry, Victoria, please go ahead.
I just wanted to, on behalf of the team, to thank you so much, Professor Ajboy Josiah, for creating the time. We are so grateful that you are able to join us today, and please join us again another time when we call on you.
I will. I will.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. So we'll let you go as we move into the next round of questions. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, so I hand it over back to Yvonne to take us through the round of questions for Dr. Isaete. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Victoria. So I'm going to go to the next round for Dr. Isaete, and we seem to have so many questions, so I think I'll just be giving them to you piecemeal, Doc, if that is okay. So the first question is from Mwavia Gali. And it's giving a scenario where a month ago, there's some leading professor who suggested that university should not allow professors to train school teachers, since they are totally outdated with the reality of the schools today. So apparently this thinking comes from his experience with these functional schools in some communities. So what is your take? That is the first question. And I think this is not just to Dr. Isaete, but to all of us. Should university professors train school teachers? I think that is the question. And then the second question is from Emmanuel. I'd want to inquire if the Q&A tools that you use are validated and available for public consumption. I would gladly want to access them. The other question, to what extent is self-assessment reliable? What if the education system strengthen the supportive supervision? That's the last. To what extent is self-assessment reliable? What if the education system strengthen the supportive supervision? So Dr. Isaete, I'll first start with those three. There's a lot for you. So if you can respond to those three, not in any order. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yes, these are very interesting questions. And I may not have holistic answers, but I can give what I think about it. The first one is whether the university professor should be allowed to train teachers. The answer really depends on, okay, where is the trend going as far as teacher education is concerned? What are those qualities, attributes of a teacher that are needed now? And do the university professors have those attributes? Yes or no? If they don't have, what can be done so that they are able to cope? Because learning and unlearning is part of life. There are university professors who went to school in the era when computers were not there. But now they have caught up with the use of computers. So given an opportunity, I believe the university professors can still train teachers. But the question is, are there chances for them to upskill themselves, to have opportunities for retooling, that could be the word, so that they're able to cope with the current demands? That is how, that is my opinion. So the answer is yes. And what opportunities are there to support them to do their role? Then the second question is, are tools? Yes, the tools were validated. Development of these tools was a process. The tools were developed by the teacher educators themselves. And it went through the validation process, and the tools are available, but they are different tools, and hence they are ought to be used together with associated rubrics, which actually also require to be updated with the trends. Now, there was a question, there was something on the chat about inclusivity, or how inclusive are the tools. The tools, by the way, need also to be customized to what the institution feels is their immediate problem. So they are generic, and you can customize them to address what you think is your weak area so that you're able to improve. Self-assessment, if it is reliable, yes, you need to be honest, because it is about you. What do you think is your weak point, and how can you be helped? So quality assurance is about planning. Okay, you have a plan of what to do and how to do it. Then you do it. And after you have done it, you need to check if it has given you the results that you are looking for. And then after you have checked, you need to again act, meaning depending on the direction. If you are not contented with the results, or if some are okay and others are not, then you go back to the drawing board, because it is really about monitoring what we do so that we detect our mistakes and correct them, so that we don't keep making the same mistakes. Because remember, you need to have the quality assurance inbuilt in the process. Because if you detect a mistake out, it is difficult to correct it. By the time the mistake is corrected, it would have produced other similar mistakes. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So I will ask the second question, a set of questions, and then I think that those that are general, they're directed at yourself, Dr. Sati, but I think these are questions that all of us here as educators should be able to deliberate upon. So I will ask those that are specific to you, and then I will open it to the floor for the rest of the questions. So the first one is, okay, how often is the monitoring of standards done in Ugandan schools? That is specific to Uganda. The second one, what is the situation of teachers actually spending their time on taking the curriculum to the students in Uganda? I'd like to know the number of schools in Uganda. Okay. So I think I will have those ones, and then the rest I will open it up to the floor. Victoria, unless there's a question that is specific to Dr. Isate that you have seen in the chat. I may have missed them.
No. I think this one is.
Can you repeat the second question? How is what?
So how have you? No, that's not the one. Sorry.
I think
yes.
So
the first one is how often is the monitoring of standards in Ugandan schools? Then what is the situation of teachers actually spending their time on taking the curriculum to the students? I think it's teaching the curriculum, I'm not so sure. How many are the number of schools in Uganda?
I don't think I have the answer to the last two questions, but I can say something about monitoring, and maybe there's someone from the ministry actually who is from that body who could answer this question even better than me. But monitoring is an ongoing process, and it is planned at another level at the ministry, and I know that those monitors visit schools. I don't have exact answer as to how many times they do, but someone from the ministry probably can answer that. But I know that it is an ongoing process and they do it regularly. But how often, I don't know. The second question, I don't seem to understand it. What is the situation of the teachers taking the curriculum? I don't think I understand the question. So
yeah, it is
maybe
not clear.
I open it, I leave it for others. Yes, and the number of schools in Uganda, I also don't have an answer, because every day we register our schools, so I don't know how many they are.
Thank you, Doctor. There's just one more.
Yes,
how have you institutionalized the tools, especially the self-assessment tool? How often should such a tool be administered, and who administers it? And is it mandatory? This is a loaded question. Or and who are the consumers of the findings? So first of all, have you institutionalized it? And then how often should it be administered? Who administers it? Is it mandatory? And who is the consumer of the findings?
The tool is domesticated. I said that these tools are there. The institution needs to customize it to suit their needs. You understand your problems better, and hence you domesticate this tool so that you are able to collect information that you can use to improve teacher training in your institution. Who administers it? Every teacher institution is supposed to have internal quality assurance mechanisms. That is, either it is a directorate or it is a quality assurance committee, but at university level, every university has a department or a directorate directly in charge of quality assurance. So they take responsibility for these tools. It was a loaded question. What else was being asked?
Who is the consumer of the information?
Oh yeah, because quality assurance is a continuous process of monitoring what you do, how you do, and how your results are speaking to the expectations. So the consumer of the self-assessment diagnostic tools, if it is at individual level, it is the individual who then wakes up to say, I think I need to do ABCD. At the institution, it is the institution itself which puts measures to address the weaknesses, the loopholes that they have realized as far as their institution is concerned in the kind of teacher training that they are offering. So it is aimed at improving teacher education. So no, the teacher educators themselves and the teacher institution are the ones to take action so that you have informed decisions about which direction to take as far as the quality of your teacher trainees or the teachers that you are going to graduate is concerned. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now I'd like to open it up to the participants, and maybe if there is anybody who would like to respond to the question that was addressed to Uganda first that was not answered by Dr. Eseti.
And even maybe also to announce that we've just posted in the chat room the webinar evaluation form. It's a virtual form, online form. Feel free to just give us your feedback. Before you can copy the link, and then you can work on that later after the webinar. And also to encourage colleagues who have got any other experiences to share. We're supposed to have experiences from Rwanda, from Liberia, and Kenya. We don't know whether the time zones have caused havoc, but in case you can share with us your experiences, that would be very, very welcome. Over to you, Yvonne.
Thank you so much, Victoria. And just to maybe open up the floor, I'll just pose a question. So this is from one of us. Which are some of the hoops and hurdles that's thrown along learning paths, and how should both learners and tutors who have done exemplary well in their roles be celebrated? What are some of the hoops and hurdles that we meet along the learning paths, and how should those people who have gone beyond that be celebrated? So please feel free to raise your hand and unmute. And I can see, okay. I see people who have raised their hand, but I cannot see who exactly. Victoria, are you able to see? Please help me. Okay, Raviro, please go ahead.
Yes. We have Raviro and Hafez. Yeah.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Are you getting me?
Yes.
All right. I just want to share experiences in Zimbabwe about teacher training education, whereby we are training teachers to be compliant with Education 5.0. And in Education 5.0, we are looking at a teacher who can do some research to solve problems within communities, not only teaching the learners, but always giving them the skills by being innovative, by doing community enrichment, being industrialists, to make those young ones have those skills necessary for lifelong learning, necessary to solve any other problem in the community, like giving them hands-on skills to be able to conquer the problems that will be facing after attaining their certificates, their diploma and the like. So our teachers are now dealing with Education 5.0. Thank you.
Unmute, Yvonne, unmute yourself.
Sorry, thank you. Sorry for that. Yeah, I was just saying this is a learning platform for us. So please feel free to reach out to Mawarire for more information on Education 5.0. And then let's have, who else was, oh, they've put their hand down. I cannot see.
I'd
Any
say,
other?
we had someone, what's the name? Slayman, something like that, who had raised their hand. Yeah. And another person can come up. Yeah.
Any other contribution from
It
the
was
floor?
Hafez Tosin Suleiman. And colleagues, you raise your hand, we allow you to talk. You cannot just talk. That's how it works. So we are requesting that you raise your hand, then we allow you to talk. Otherwise, it's difficult to talk. But in the meantime, I saw a very pertinent question. If you can allow me, Yvonne, maybe to read it to...
Yes, please go ahead.
All right. Thank you very much. So it was to Dr. Saite still. It was a very interesting comment, and I felt probably needed to address it. And they were asking how, let me just get to it, the community involvement. It was about how can we ensure that the our communities are engaged in monitoring of these standards, the quality assurance standards, because it looks like it's coming from the education sectors, college environment, school environment, and so on and so forth. But how can we flip the coin and have the community also engaged in monitoring these teaching and teacher education standards? I felt it was quite an interesting addition. If you can maybe respond to that, Daktari. Yes, thank you. Yeah, then I'll hand over to you, Yvonne. There's someone who is raising their hand. Yeah, that's you.
Thank you, Doctor, for reading this question for me. I don't have an immediate answer. I need to think. But it is something very important. We need to look at it from the context of, so who is the community that we are looking at? Yes. So maybe I need to think through it, but it's very important. But if we are looking at the community in different aspects, like the parents, the place where the institution is located, the other stakeholders, then their yes, their hands up. Maybe somebody wants to give it a shot. I don't have an immediate answer, Doctor.
Thank you, Dr. Sete. So we'll have, I can see, I don't know whether this is Bezawit from UNESCO. I can see Bezawit and then Innocent, and then we'll have Abdul Kadir.
Please go ahead and speak, colleagues.
There's someone raising their hand. Okay.
I can go.
Hello.
Yes. Who is speaking?
Innocent was speaking.
Okay, Innocent,
Okay.
please
Thank
go
you very
ahead.
Maybe you
My
go
name is
first. I'll
Dr.
come.
Suleiman Hafiz from Nigeria. I don't know if I'm allowed to continue.
Okay, please continue.
Thank you very much. I just have few observations. To start with, I want to talk about the self-assessment presented by, I think, second but last speaker. And I just want to say that it's a good initiative
if teachers and the teachers trainers are honest, reflection, and practice to improve your practice and make your teachers better in order to live up to the 24th century's challenges. Also, I would also like to comment the presentation from the Secretary of TRCN in Nigeria. I think is a wonderful presentation and is a true reflection of what is happening in Nigeria and some other African countries that I know. But my own observation on that is the current reform about the curriculum in universities in Nigeria. As the prof is aware, we are no longer using BMAS, and we are working towards the use of CCMAS, which somehow unify the curriculum across the country, but give at least 30% of a variance. But looking at 70% sent back by LUC, I noticed that it is more or less driving the teachers' education from teachers' education perspective.
Sorry, I don't know whether it is my connection, but we seem to have lost Hafiz. Innocent, I'll give you 1 minute.
All right. All right, thank you so much. Just to clarify, when I meant community, I meant the parents and the guardians, in particular, because they're the ones that also, you know, have an interest in education. So my contribution is like related to the same question to say, you know, when we are thinking about the tools and standards, we need to start thinking about systems thinking, you know, how all the interconnected intersectional challenges, you know, play a role in education standards. That is even agriculture, technology, innovation, you know, water and everything. And then the other part is on model solving. We need to start thinking about like understanding those challenges and how they are affecting education, because that's why I asked about community, because sometimes there could be a water issue at home. There could be, you know, a financial issue at home that affects a learner, and that learner affects the teacher, and that affects the whole education system. So I just wanted to clarify on that one, so that we start model solving the issues that we're looking at in terms of teacher development. Over.
Thank you so much, Innocent. And that is so true. We recently did a study on TPD in emergency areas. And yes, the situation at home tends to be carried to school. And then the teachers have to deal with these learners at the school level. Let's have Abdul Kadir, you're next. Abdul Kadir, please unmute. Okay, Bezawit, please go ahead.
Sorry, Yvonne, I think 5 people are joined by my name, I think.
Okay.
The one I shared the link.
Oh, okay. It's a bit difficult to know then who is there. So I will call on Proskovia and then Leonika. I think Leonika will be our final speaker. Victoria, I don't know how much more time we can take. I think we are almost coming to the end of the program. Proskovia?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Thank you so much. I thought I was pausing because you had asked Dr. Vicky about time. But now that I've been given a chance, I'd like to thank you so much, particularly also Dr. Esayet for that presentation. And I'm looking forward to the rolling out of those tools if they are not yet already rolled out to the teacher training institutions, and particularly also to the universities that have the teacher training component. because many times the tools I've seen, they are one-off tools, and we in Makerere University, we used to call them the pink forms. They come once, and you never get the feedback. It's like a penalty, you know, a fine-faulting tool. That's how I used to look at it. But perhaps rather than just completing the self-assessment tool, this could also be accompanied with teacher journaling, that the teachers engage in keeping a journal where they write what is good, what they've done, where they need improvement, and they can keep this for several years, and they can track their progress and areas that need improvement. That's one of the course units we did at the university about maintaining a teacher journal. But the moment we went into teaching, we seemed to have left or forsaken that as university staff. But it's a good practice. And perhaps then the teacher journal would then be followed with